Gustavo, thank you very much for joining us here at, we can call it your studio. What's the GEF's real ambition here at Rio+20?
Well, the GEF is the financial mechanism of the three conventions that were born in Rio. I was in Rio, so I'm a veteran of Rio. And we have developed for this conference an analysis of what happened with GEF funding over the past 20 years and a reflection of what it meant in terms of helping countries to fulfill their commitments before the Convention on Climate Change, Convention on Biodiversity, and the Convention to Combat Desertification. Even though the resources that we have invested are significant, we invested over $10 billion in this period that has leveraged $50 billion in co-financing from other sources. It's still not sufficient money, number one, but we realize that the GEF money has gone much beyond what we expected originally. Its catalytic effect has been fantastic, and we need to really take stock of what works and what doesn't work, so that for the next 10 or 20 years we can put the investments that we have, which is not going to be plenty, because we know the economic crisis is not very conducive of significant resources. So we need to be able to have more money, but we need to be able to know how to spend this money better and how to spend them in the priority areas that we all agree upon. And therefore, this is a wonderful opportunity, because Rio+20 is not your typical UN meeting, even though you have the negotiations on aspects that are important, that need to be addressed. There may be gaps, such as the oceans. We're here today to talk about that, but also to get new ideas. How can we implement the ambitions of Rio for the regional Earth Summit through the combination of willing governments, private sector, civil society, financiers, that doesn't require universal agreement on every aspect of the global public goods plight.
You brought it up, your focus perhaps is going to be on what works and what doesn't work in terms of finance. It's such a critical issue, particularly when you look at the financial crisis that is afflicting parts of the planet. Tell us now then, what do you think, over the past 20 years from a financial point of view, what has worked and what do you think you need to push to one side?
Well, one thing that came very clear in the analysis that we've done is that we need to build capacity of developing countries in order for the money to take root. If you just throw money at a problem, but you don't leave a legacy of better institutions, more transparent organizations, capable people that have actually a place to work and can deliver in what we need to deliver, you won't be able to have projects that go beyond the investment phase. You may have a certain activity for a certain period of time, but then it'll drop off. So we invested a lot initially in capacity building, and in places that we have invested in capacity building, we see that it's just flourishing. One example is my own country here in Brazil, where now became the largest user of GEF resources, and everywhere you look in terms of protected areas, in terms of managing landscapes, in terms of oceans, everything has had an impact from some GEF financing. Of course, others have contributed, other bilateral agencies, the national budget, NGOs, private sector, but you can find the footprints of the investment of GEF everywhere. And this is great to see, because Brazil now has tons of capacity and is able to internalize resources much more effectively. We need to have more of that in many more countries.
A key concern for many countries, particularly when they're struggling to find the money to keep their own economies afloat, is, are the funds that they give to developing countries, are they accountable? How much of that is getting skimmed off? How much corruption is there out there? What kind of assurances can you give? What kind of tools do you have to ensure that these funds are appropriately used?
Right. Well, transparency is a key to everything, because you have to have the confidence of the donors so that you can continue to get them to commit resources. The GEF resources actually do not have a high degree of risk from that perspective, because we work through a number of agencies such as the multilateral development banks, UN agencies, and they take care of the supervision of this. Sometimes we criticize because people say, well, your systems is very bureaucratic, money takes a long time to get going, there's a lot of controls over the money, but some of these criticisms may actually have some some reason, and we are streamlining some of the processes to make sure that money gets to the end user more effectively and with less constraints. But to be able to really have money be spent for what the purpose that it was given to is essential, because a very small number of mishaps can really rattle to the system and derail it. So we need to be able to really do a good job. And I'm very proud to say that JEF resources haven't been misused. Through many and many independent audits, we have done well, and that's the reason why, after 20 years, we still deserve the confidence of the donors. We are entering now, in a couple of years, in the 6th replenishment phase of the JEF. So every 4 years, the fund has been replenished, and we hope, irrespective of the global financial crisis, to convince the donors that the JEF resources can actually result in lots of good in developing countries, and it's a great investment of taxpayers' money.